Hi, it's Gadget UK here again, back for part 2 of the Acorn Electron repairs, 2 of. So in part 1 we finished off by fixing the RAM there. Yeah, it's worth checking out part 1 if you've not seen it, because some mistakes were made. This chip here. But anyway, you can see that's the old RAM. I just want to show you the behaviour. It's always good to retest with the old suspected faulty part. And I've switched the power on. That's what we were getting. Yellow and white. I think originally I had the other ULA on here, actually it was kind of like red and yellow. It's interesting how you get different colour things shown between these two different ULAs. You know, I could swap this ULA for the other one and it'll be red and yellow, but anyway, they both function perfectly normally. It's just that RAM. And I've got the ESD wrist strap on here. Here's the replacement RAM. Let's just put that there a sec and we'll just get this out. It's not very tight in that socket, so it's easy just to get a little bit of leverage here and more or less just pull it out with my fingers. There we go, that's the old one out. So let's get this replacement, and this is an Hitachi. Just checking pin 1 is at the top, and I've switched it on. You should hear the beep. There we go. And as you can see, we've got basic up, so yeah, that was the issue in part 1. So just switching that off. The other thing from part 1 is you'll note that there was one point towards the back end of the video where I lifted this connector, and in fact I was pushing it back in, I think, and this blue flap here just went over and snapped, and it was stuck out. It was like bent right out. It looked a nightmare. So I just got a little bit of epoxy just under there and I clamped it. Got a couple of metallic rulers on either side and clamped it, pegged it, and you can see there's a bit of the epoxy there just shining through. Just a tiny little bit. I'm not really shining through, just evident there, but it went back together okay, no issues at all. Of course, you could argue epoxy is probably the best thing to do there, and you can see these little fatigue marks here. That was evidence of that. It's like a different colour, the plastic, but yeah, you could always just replace that with another type of connector entirely. It's not that important. The membrane on this one is okay. There's the odd little ripple and stuff in it, but it works perfectly. Anyway, let's just get that back on. The other thing, I'm not sure I've done it yet. I'll do it to this one in a minute. Need to clean this up, but as you'll see, we do the same sort of thing in a minute to the other one. But before we do that, I'll also point out at the end of the last video we got composite working with colour, and it's just that LK4 down there. There's 2 pads. I'll just get you a bit closer and I'll stick an arrow so you can see where the pads are. And I just joined them with a tiny piece of wire on the top side. It's so small there you might not be able to see it, but that gave us colour on the composite here. But the other thing that was interesting as well towards the back end of that video is I worked out that if you've not got the keyboard connected, it doesn't boot. You just get a black screen, you don't get the beep, and you don't see basic come up. So I felt it was worth just investigating a little bit further here actually. Let's just try and peel this up. It's kind of like sticky, isn't it? See what we see. Yeah, there's something here, look, because you've got the connection, yeah, but then there's something here, some components here, resistors or an IC or something. It might even be a couple of different things here. Yeah, look, there's some stuff here as well. So let's just unscrew that keyboard, just in the name of science, I guess, and see what we see on that side of it. So we still can't see much here, but what we can see is all these diodes. You see that? We've got a whole load of diodes and some resistors, and if we just look through the gap there, yeah, there's literally nothing else there apart from a cap. There's a tantalum on there. You can see the LED here. You can change that for a different colour if you wanted to. Yeah, that's it. It could be that because the keyboard's not there, maybe it thinks break has been pressed or all the keys have been pressed, and if that's the case, it would be held in a reset. That might be the short answer, I don't know, but I will have a look at the schematics just to see if I can work it out. If you look at the connections here, you've got 4 data bits, yeah, D0, 1, 2, 3, yeah. The other side of the matrix is all address lines, look, and these all go to the ULA. I've checked that, A0 through to A13, yeah, and each one of them has got the a diode, cathode of the diode going to the address line. These go high, these get set periodically high, so it scans, say that column there, so in other words you've got a high here. When you've got a high here, yeah, oh, hang on, I'm trying to make sense of this. I was going to say, if you've got a high here, yeah, this is reverse biased, yeah. The thing that drives this is the data bits. So if you had a high and a high, mind you, this is scanning, isn't it? So if you've got a high here, yeah, and a key is pressed, you're connecting ground to that, you're going to measure a ground here. if it's not scanning there, and you've got high here, it's going to switch. I honestly can't make sense of that. Post down in the comments below if you understand what's going on. We've got pull-ups here. I don't understand how that actually scans that, if I'm completely honest. I'm missing something blatantly, simply obvious, I'm sure. But it seems that it's, you know, the rows and columns, you know, the columns are driven by the data bus, and the rows are done by the address bus here, you know, via these diodes. I don't really know how that's working, and I don't really understand why that wouldn't allow the system to power on, other than the fact the keyboard's not connected, this stuff's not here, therefore every time it's scanning it's like every key is pressed, so that's some sort of reason that it doesn't boot properly. The brake is just a switch, as you can see, between ground and the connection on the ULA, I think. So yeah, brake obviously will reset the system, but that's handled separately, and obviously you've got your LED up here and your caps lock LED as well. So the main schematics, I spent some time having a quick look at these. Certainly when I was looking at the RAM fault in part 1, before we knew it was a RAM fault, there's so very little on here. You know, most of the complexity here is in the output, you know, for sound and video and stuff, all this stuff here. There's quite a lot of the components dedicated to that, really. But in terms of the main chipset, you know, you've got your 4 RAM chips, your ROM, your CPU. There's a not fitted chip here. That's where the keyboard gets scanned on those address connections. They're joined up here, but this is not fitted. You know, they're going to go to the main address bus all the way across to the ULA. The only thing I can see that uses the -5 volts, and I think that's what this indicates here, is the ULA. I couldn't see anything else that I could be missing. I didn't really spend too long trying to find connections for the -5, but I suspect that it is just the ULA that uses the -5, because the type of RAM that's on here, you know, 4164, it just needs 5 volts. It doesn't use anything else. I think, although just looking at this, there's 2 connections here. You've got +5. Is that +5 or -5? I don't know, but there's something that says not fitted. Where's that going to? Oh, that's a pull-up, by the way. It looks like it on the data bus. Data in, data out. So, yeah, that's nothing. That's +5. That's just a pull-up, but it does say not fitted, strangely enough. There's quite a few of these things that say not fitted, not fitted, not fitted. And then obviously you've got lots of links. The only one that perhaps I haven't talked about is worth mentioning. You can see here, LK1, Hitachi, Toshiba. Is that in reference to the ROM? Yes, I think it is. Yeah, so maybe they had different types of ROMs here that had a different pin out or something, and just needed 1 pin flipping there. That's the chip select, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. Incidentally, you can see here, look, there's a couple more of these clips broke off. It seems like there are 2 of these, 1 on each side. So I might just, I don't know, see if I can pull those out, stick those back down as well. So I'll super glue that post back down there. I'll get some epoxy around it later once that's set. Also super glued that back in place there. Again, I'll get some epoxy around it once it is set. It's just the top piece that came away there. I could even stick a cable tie around that and epoxy it on. That would strengthen it at the point where it joins. I may do that. And I also found one of these clips here floating around. That's just the ones that grip the speaker. It's not going to do any harm just to have that extra clip there that I've glued back on. So again, I will just stick a little bit of epoxy around the base of that once that has dried. But the next thing I'm going to do is just clean the top of this up. Let's use some IPA and plastic clean, try and get these black marks off here. But I'm going to do something I've been wanting to do for a while actually, and that's create a little light pipe here for the LED, because the LED sits down here recessed, and if you look at it from an angle you can't really see the LED very well. And all you've got to do is, well, clean this first of all, super clean with a bit of IPA. Then get a piece of Captain tape, the flat side down here, not the sticky, so the sticky side is facing upwards, and just tape it down on either side to hold it in position. So there you go, you can see what I mean. I've got a piece of Captain tape, sticky side up, and then 2 pieces on the edges there just to hold that in place, and it's over the top of the hole. So if I cut a very small amount of hot metal glue here, I need very, very little. Just a couple of small pieces. I'm going to chop these in 2 actually, and put them down the hole there like that. That's probably more than enough. Let me just see how low that's going to settle down in there. Yeah, that's going to be okay. So that tiny little bit, and 150 degrees here, and we'll just melt that glue. You can see it melting already actually. Obviously you've got to be careful you don't go too hot here, because you could melt the plastic. So there you go, it's right at the right level there, so hopefully that should illuminate nicely. So the next thing I'm going to do is swap out some of these capacitors. I may not swap that one out, you could argue that's the main one to swap out actually. It's just that it's really large and it's axial. I'm going to struggle to find something there. You can see the glue, the capacitor's loose here. They used hot glue to mount that, so I need to heat that up just to secure that cap because it's wobbling around an awful lot. But I've got replacements for all these other ones. We'll take them off and measure them up. So I'll start with this one at the back here. It's 1000 microfarad, 10 volts. I'll probably go higher on the voltage, although I may have some 10 volt ones. 16 volts will be fine, but I use low, super low ESR ones, the FR series, for ideal for things like this. So yeah, we'll just get some solder on those up to temperature. Yep. And we'll get this off. Negatives towards the top here, I just noticed that before coming to solder it. Yeah, the solder's come off there. I can literally just prise that pin up there. Move that one a little bit here. Yeah, one leg's free. The bottom one there's free. The ground isn't quite. There we go. Sometimes just rocking it a little bit while you heat the pins there is sufficient. It's only a single-sided board this, so there we go. It smells a bit baked on the underside. I don't see any signs of leakage or anything. 105 degrees, so yeah, let's get this one on. There is a positive mark down there. This is Panasonic. It's an FM series, this, not FR, this one. I think some of the others, though, should be FRs. Just bend those over a bit. That's one side done. Let's just heat and trim those off. And clean up when we've done the other ones. I've just checked the old caps, and you know what, they're really good. They seem to be good brands as well, like Nichicon, and ESR is very good. Capacitance is good as well, so yeah, I think if you got one of these, you wouldn't necessarily need to rush in and do a recap. I'm not going to bother recapping the other one, we'll just check it. I might ESR test a few of them and inspect it. Yeah, that'll do, I'm happy with that. I will just get some hot air on here and just heat this glue. And when you've done work on any power supply, measure the voltages before you plug it in. So let's just do that. Measure from down here, we've got +5, and we should have -5. Yep. And then we should have AC on these two connections up here. Yeah, 22 volts AC. So my AC voltage is a bit high, it's supposed to be 18 volts, but as you can see, 22 volts here. So shifting my attention to the other one, it's a bit dusty in there, so I'm going to get the hoover on it. So on the second board, the one that didn't have a ram fault, I'm just going to clean around this with a little bit of vinegar because we've got some corrosion there. That, I think, is the keyboard issue. I don't think there's anything wrong with the ribbon. So I've got some IPA here. I'm just going to have a little bit of a wipe along here and round. I use a few cotton buds here just to make absolutely sure that it's pretty clean around that bit. And then we'll just give that a try. It's just these 3 axials now, so I'll see what I've got for a 470, and I think that one's a 10. So let's connect the keyboard. Yeah, I was inspecting this, and it's not ripped at all, it's just a little bend. So it got to be the corrosion there, and obviously we may need to clean this. I might get some deoxit on there in a minute, but just right now I want to just give this a quick test and just test each key and see if the thing works. Now the interesting thing is, that's the composite on this one. That's weird, isn't it? I wonder if that's that little variable cap. Let me just rotate it a little bit. No, it's not. So we've got some sort of issue with the composite on here, actually. That is very interesting. Yeah, so we've got a weird problem with the composite signal on this one that's going to need further investigation. But if I press the keys now, yeah, they're all working, look. We had columns out before. Oh, hang on, I's not. So we do have a problem with I. Everything's right on the next row, so maybe the I key is just dirty, and the C as well. Everything above that and around that is okay. So C and I. Oh. And M. C, I, M. And one of the arrows. But I mixed in the chroma, and that weird coloured speckle thing disappeared, and it's totally normal, the video. So maybe there's a fault there somewhere, but I don't know. All I do know is that having merged the chroma, the display is fine between both of these. So I wiped the horrible mark off here. I'll show you some of the other cleanup work in a minute. I've just took the C key off, not working at all. All I did is get a cap of IPA, dab the cotton bud and do a bit of that, actually leak it onto the top there. Yeah, so it goes into the key, and then did that 3 or 4 times, and then I was pressing it, it was working but hardly ever, and then wobble it, press it and wobble it around like that, because the contact inside will do that, and any contaminant between them, the IPA will go onto it, and if you then flush it again with a couple more drips of IPA like this, and do the whole thing again, tap it a number of times, it works. And you can see that here, works every single time now, dead reliable, no problems. The other thing you could do is obviously desolder it, soak it in IPA. You could also use deoxit or something like that, you know, contact cleaner. There's lots of dust and fluff, but anyway, we'll just do them one at a time until I've got all the keys working, and then I'll just take them all off and strip it down. So, as I say, blob some of this on. Different sides of the switch, and then it will leak in there properly. That should do. Let's press it now. Still not working, so let's press it and wobble it. It's working now. Right, a break. Yeah, so it's that wobbling bit that is the key thing here. Because as I say, you know, there's going to be a contact, a wobble in it here now. There's a contact on top of another contact, and the IPA just helps dissolve whatever's in there, and the movements sideways, you know, moving the switch around like I just did. I'm just getting some IPA in again. Is the thing that frees it up, but it's important to do that a few times to flush it out. So I think the next thing I need to do with both of these is take all the keycaps off, because you can see they are pretty dirty, certainly on this one versus that one. The case on this one is a bit lighter, isn't it? It's a bit sort of a lighter shade of cream. Neither of them I would retro bright, just leave them as they are. Actually, they're pretty good. So yeah, I'm just going to use the keycap extractor here and pull them all off. Not at the same time, because the colour difference could be interesting. I could end up with like light key, dark key, light key, dark key, etc. between them. Look at the state of that. It's better to do them one machine at a time, and then obviously I can compare to the other one. It's easy putting them back on. So yeah, I'm going to pull them all off. I'll pull the lid off in a minute, and then we can get access to here, clean all around there, and soak these in the sink, but I'll do one keyboard at a time. You can see, I just put them in that water, look how brown it is. I put some washing powder in there and just gave it a stir, and it went instantly brown. So yeah, a lot of dirt is coming off. I don't have any oxy action. Normally I'd stick some of that. In the UK here it's called Vanish, it's like TAED. I forget, I'll stick the name up top left. There's a chemical, you know, the name, what the acronym stands for. It's a type of acid, I think, but yeah, it's quite mild, and you get in detergent, washing powder a little bit, but straight away I can tell that's working. So I'll leave that for a few hours, and then I'll scrub them all in the sink and rinse them all off, and we'll get them back on. So I'll just get the cartridge out the back there, or expansion, call it what you will, and I'm just going to vacuum the surface of this before I start to clean. And yes, I missed the space bar. This one's going to be held on with a... oh, it's not. I was going to say a bar or something, but mind you, oh yeah, it is. it's got those little clip things, look, can't get it out, there we go. So the bar's fallen down, the thing's come out here, look, let's just get that out, there we go, it's not broken. So yeah, I can put that in with the keys now. It makes sense to get the space bar back on, and in fact if you've not got the keyboard attached to the lid here, that's even easier. But all I did is I lifted the bar up and then hooked on, you know, one side. That was a bit fiddly. Have it on its side like this, and then with the bar here, I pulled the bar downwards in order to push this clip over, and then the bar, you know, has gone through the hole. From that point, it can feel like it's not going to go back on, but you've just got to manipulate a little bit here to get the over the plus there, some wiggling, there we go, maybe required, and then it just pushes on, and you can see that is back on. So I'm not going to film all of this, but you can see just that area there that I've rubbed. The dirt is coming off. It is literally dirt on the surface, it's not corrosion. So yeah, give me an hour. So they came out clean after leaving to be soaked overnight. They've just been drying like this for the last few hours. I don't see any residue of water, you know, it's all gone into the paper towel here. And they're spotless. The interesting thing is, look at that little dink there. The thought I had there was, oh, did I do that with the removal tool? But no, every single key is like that. That's I think where it was moulded. Is it an injection moulded or something? But the amazing thing with these keys, you know, all keys of this generation really, you know, on a C64 or Atari 8-bit, etc., is the printing. It never comes off, does it? It never comes off. It's like it's lasted 40 years or more, hasn't it? Which is incredible. You know, if you look at any modern laptop, I mean, I could show you one here, I'll perhaps do that in a minute. My wife wears the print-off keys all the time. Doesn't matter what laptop I give her. It's like jump 2 or 3 years in the future and the print is coming off the keys there. So yeah, these things were designed to last, and I think that might be the answer here. That if you think about it, keys like this, they were not thinking about making things biodegradable. Keyboards these days are literally biodegradable. Well, to a degree. And I think that's what it is. You know, these were like, I don't know whether these some sort of laser printing technology, I don't know how they did it, but these things are so hardy. Even the red print there on the face, you know, it's not come off, despite the fact these have been scrubbed and soaked and stuff. And obviously, and had thousands of hours of use over the years, so it's amazing, really. So hopefully you can tell that's a bit cleaner. It looks a bit smeary and stuff. You know, I've gone over this a number of times with the cotton buds and stuff here to clean the surface up. You know, it's pitted a little bit. It's pitted a little bit in certain areas, but that is very clean now. So I just need to compare to the other one, which I've got here, and stick all the keys on. So I'll start with the Escape. Yeah, these have still got a bit of water in, actually. It's the same problem I always have with other systems as well. So like the water gets in that cross there, and by virtue of, you know, you turn upside down, the vacuum holds it in. So even when you tap it like that, it doesn't always come out. But if you blow in there, yeah, I can feel moisture coming back at me. So, oh, I hate this. There's one reason why I try and avoid washing keys wherever I can, because it can take quite some time and effort to get all of the moisture out of these. And of course, if you don't get that moisture out of there, when it marries up with this, the moisture's going to trickle down the thing, go on the inside. So it is really important that these are dried. I may just get some hot air onto these, actually. Anyway, that's the first key on. Right, so about half an hour later, all the keys are back on that. Obviously, the shell needs cleaning up, so I'll do that afterwards. I'll, you know, take the keyboard out properly and then scrub the case in the sink. But I need to do the same thing with the other one now. You could argue I could have done them at the same time, but it's like I say, having one to compare to where all the keys are already on it just makes it a little bit easier. So, yeah, anyway, I'll just jump cut to having done this keyboard as well, if I can. So a point of interest on this one, can you see the delete key is crooked? Let me just see if I can get you a better look at that. Look at that. It's crooked. It won't seem to straighten out. So it's going to be interesting to see, is the plunger distorted, or is it the actual, you know, part that joins the plunger there on the key? Yeah, I'm not even sure we can tell there. It could be that. Just looking at that, that looks like that's been twisted. I think that bit there is perfectly straight, actually. And in fact, you could try that. Let's just try it. Let's put that on there. This will prove it. There you go. Can you see it straight? So that shows without a doubt it is the plus there that's out of position. There's a huge difference in the cleanliness of these two. You can see there's hardly any dust and dirt on here, hardly any corrosion or anything like that. There's a huge difference, and obviously the keys look a lot better, but anyway, if I pull the sense thing off here, it kind of gives me an opportunity to sort of reverse the process here and show you what I did. If you sort of pull the bar downwards and pull this upwards here, you can sort of unhook it. It does take a bit of experimentation here. Hang on. Obviously this would be far, there we go, you can see how unhooked that. It would be far easier to do without the plastic surround here, and on this side here we can just sort of massage it and push it that way. But you can also pull the bar, again, the bar moves this way to the left, which should allow us to unhook it here as well, I think. The problem, of course, is the top. I mean, you can just technically just pull it out because it's got a little plunger, isn't it? So if you pull it straight, hang on, it's coming out now, I think. There we go. So you could do that, just pull it off and then stick these back into here like that. Hang on, which way does that go? Yeah, like that. So yeah, you could do that. You could just pull it off and then stick these back in. It is quite hard getting it back on though. I mean, I'll show you with this one when we come to redo this one, but you see this bar, it can go up and down like that. It can move left and right a little bit. So if you hold it up like that, it's not too hard to clip that back on if you use a screwdriver to assist. Anyway, let's get those all washed. So I've not filmed a lot of this stuff. There were horrible black streaks, you know, all the dirt was in here in this channel, and it was all the way down the gap here. Can you see the very edge there at the bottom? It was all the way along, and I just, you know, used a toothbrush with some IPA and just got it out that way. And obviously I've got the marks off here. I still need to do a bit more cleaning on here with some cotton buds focus cleaning there to get some of the marks off, but you can see we've got some sticky marks or something here. So let's just get a little bit of IPA. You can use some plastic clean on it if that doesn't get rid of it. And just have a go at these. There you go, some of that's coming off, look. You can see that. But yeah, it's a bit persistent. You can sort of hear it chipping off. It's kind of gone hard and crusty, but you can see, yeah, with some work we'll be able to clean that up. And if at first you don't succeed, just use a bit more IPA or some plastic cleaner, Plastex or Novus. But you can see that it's perfect now. So most of the marks are coming off this, apart from here. You can see it looks really dirty and there's kind of like a yellow tinge to it, so we may be able to improve that. So I'm going to use some Maguire's Plastex here. So I'm just using a cotton bud actually because the end of it is sort of blocked. Let's just get some of that on there like that, and then we'll just have a bit of a rub and move in a circular motion there. So all cleaned up here, and these have been soaking overnight again, so I can now start to get all these keys back on. By the way, I'm pretty sure the key switches on these are the same as on the BBC. You can see all the moisture that comes out of each keycap. These have been just drying for an hour as well. But yeah, as I say, the key switches here look like the ones from a BBC. Finally, I've got all the keys back on there. Oh, I tell you what, it's soul destroying doing that many keys. It's quite labour intensive. It's easy to do, but it just takes so long. And you can see I've got the delete key pretty straight there. The shift key needs a little bit of a twist. Can you see it's like up here there's more of a gap than there is on the left? I'm not sure if that's going to be visible from that angle. But I'll just show you. I mean, if I just take the delete key off, because it'll make it a little bit easier to do the shift key then. What I did is I did the delete key on its own before the shift key was there. So I'll take that one off. It's a case, in fact, let's take that one off because that'll make it a bit easier as well. Get the thing on there. There we go. Yeah, it's easier when there's no other keys around it. What you've got to do is just a bit of that. Be very careful because you could break it completely, but this is quite malleable, this plastic. You can just bend it back into shape. Yeah, that's not too bad now. There's a fairly regular gap between those. And I just did that with the delete. And it straightened up completely because it was really off at an angle. It's maybe 1 degree out, but that's way better than it was. It was like really crooked. And there were 1 or 2 of the keys in the middle of the keyboard like that as well, but yeah, just looking along the profile there now, they are pretty straight. Well, that's a first. The new capacitor is... I don't quite understand, actually. I did just short these out. I tried flipping them around the other way. That is the capacitance, the ESR of that. If we try the original one here, I'm swapping both of the large ones out here. One of the power supplies, well, the one I keep will be the power supply that's not a full recap, just the main cap swapped. But you can see the microfarad rating and the ESR. Yeah, the ESR is suspiciously low, but you know what? These are really good branded caps. The Nichicon, aren't they? So, yeah, there's a chance that cap's alright. You know, like all these things, when I take the caps off, I always keep them. Just, well, for a video, to do a comparison, you know, show how many caps measured good and how many caps measured bad out of a massive volume of caps. But strange how these Panasonic, is it a C class or M class? I don't know. Let's just have a look. Yeah, look, that's minus again. Although it's not 0.2. Yeah, it's a CE, Panasonic CE. Let's just do that one more time. Yeah, look, minus. What's that all about? That is bizarre. It's probably because these caps are quite large and they may be going just up to or over the range that this is capable of doing. I need to check the specs of this again, I think, just to remind myself, will it do 3300s? So I'll swap the large cap on this one next, because this is the only cap that's not been done on this board. And then you can see, you know, how you can fit, swap an axial for a radial. Or vice versa. So the first solder point is here, just adding a bit of fresh solder just because it contains some flux. You could just add flux instead. The silicon nozzle on this needs replacing actually. There you go, you can see it's squeezing out the side there. There's a bit of a gap, which means it's not going to get that good vacuum. Nevertheless, we managed to get that out, and then the other one is up here. Yeah, that's not too bad. We should, in theory, now be able to start to lift it. Certainly this side here, because that's very free. But you could see it's glued on. You could get some IPA in there, or you could just literally just rock it. There you go. It's come off there. The snapping was the glue, actually, not the pad. So what we may need to do to free it is, that side's out, look, is just heat and pull. So we'll do that. We'll check this cap on the meter again. It looks free there, but they've got like studs in place of these. There's a pad here, as you can see, but just watch when I take this out, you'll see on the other side we've got like a little stud. Yeah, it's not very visible, but there's it's metal there, and that one there is metal there. Leaving that glue in place, I'll add some additional glue, but that's useful to glue the other cap, the other cap we're about to fit in there. So I'll do exactly the same as I did before. I'll stick the positive up this end here. There's obviously lots of different ways around you could do this, but you know, I did it like that, and then you can see the glue lines there, the glue almost lines there. I can add a bit more glue down here and a bit more down there, just like I did with the other cap. But if I get that straight and just flip it over and solder it, that's 50% of the job done. If the cap's not quite straight, I can always just reposition it in a sec. And in fact, if it's not totally straight, you could just bend it, but you can see I've done an okay job with that. So let's just trim that off. So because it's mounted here, and this leg here is going to be bent outwards like that, and I'll do exactly what I did with the other one, just literally trim it. I'll bend it outwards a bit here, I can straighten it in a minute. Cut it down about there, solder the wire on there, heat shrink it, and just pull the wire down here and solder it, and then obviously secure the cap. The other thing you could do to be double sure that the cap like this is going to stay stuck down is you could stick some double-sided pad on the underside of it and then sit it there, and then the hot glue as well. But you can see, because it's mounted up here, because that wire is going to be pretty taut down here and isolated with some tubing, there's no it's not moving anywhere. There's no chance that cap's going anywhere. As long as it's glued down, it should never be a problem. So I'll just get a piece of heat shrink tubing over there. The reason I've used this thin wire, because it's exactly the right thickness for this, and the current across that isn't going to be an issue anyway, so we'll slide that there. We'll heat shrink that in a sec. Let's just try and pull this into position. I'm having a little bit of flexibility here, otherwise, you know, it'll be just too taut, won't it? Just trim the end of that. There we go. Twist those together. Feed it through the... I think I'm going to tin that and then feed it through the hole, actually. Twisting it the other way now. And solder that contact. Just hold it a sec. So I'm just going to push the wire into position as we heat it. There we go. So the final thing is just to heat shrink this here and glue it down. So let's switch the hot air on. I mean, there are ways you could make that there tidier, perhaps. You know, it's not going to look that tidy, is it, with that bend in the heat shrink? I guess if I pull it like this, it might heat and shrink a little bit better. I don't know, let's just see. But it's pretty much right up to the cap point there, and there really isn't anywhere really for it to show. I mean, that'll do it. As soon as you get over the solder point there, you know, there's a big bulge where the solder point was. That is sufficient. So the next thing now is to, again, make sure it's totally straight and melt this hot glue. As soon as it goes sort of transparent looking, roll the cap into it a little bit to get a bite, because the can size here may be marginally smaller than the other one. In fact, it is. I can see there's just a little gap. But as we heat it and, you know, tilt it this way, it will naturally run towards the cap anyway. But if we roll the cap into it, then I'll make a good join. And then if we flip to the other side, you may have to reheat this one again when you've done the other side. There's a bit of alternating going on when you're reusing hot glue like this on a can that's small. You can, so I can roll into it now. Can you see that? It's making a smushy join. So that side's done. And then we'll just flip it around and do the same here, and then I'll add some more hot glue in a couple of places there just to secure it. I'll tell you what, that board's getting hot. But as I say, I'm going to add some more, so we'll just cut a big chunk of this off, I think. It's got to melt and touch that little cap there. I'm not worried too much about that. I just want to secure it in this corner. We can move that cap over a bit in a minute, this one, when it melts. So that's that side done, and there we go. So it's secured with 2 blobs on that side, 2 blobs on that side, and obviously it's held by this point here, and that's isolated, so that'll be fine. That will be fine. So the other thing I'll do here, and I did exactly the same thing on the other one, rather than stick a label inside it, well, I probably will do partial recap with a red dot or something, and we'll stick a red dot on there, just like I did on the other caps. I'm just going to write on this here 20 in shaky writing, look. 2022. So it's obvious when it was replaced. Anyway, let's get that back in. Perhaps the other good thing to do when you're in here as well is swap out this regulator here. I think it is. It could be a transistor actually, but it's riveted to this heatsink. The heatsink's a bit wobbly because it's not. It doesn't get soldered on. It's just like twisted through the bottom. But anyway, yeah, that's riveted on there. So yeah, you could at the very least, you know, drill the rivet out. Put some thermal compound on there and refit it, but you know, ideally perhaps replace it. But yeah, I'm not going to do that. But before someone pipes up and says, "Oh, you really need to replace that," well, clearly you don't, because this is still working. But it would perhaps be a good idea, and even better still would be to replace this power supply board with something that's perhaps a bit more modern, a DC to DC or something. But you've got, you know, a couple of voltages here, haven't you? And you need the AC, seemingly, for expansions and things. I don't know. It probably goes to the plus unit or something that's on there. I'm not really sure what they used that for. It could have been for a modem or something like that. I don't know. That's 2, and they seem to fit nicely through those little gaps there. Those wires, or through the same one, perhaps there. Finally, connect that up. So. That's it. I'm just going to wait for that to cool a bit because that cap is still just lukewarm. I want it to be stone cold. and then we'll test it again. And as you can see, that's working. I will measure the voltage there in a sec. Just to make sure we don't have anywhere near 35 volts, because obviously it hits the 35 volt cap. And as I say, my AC adapter is marginally more than it should be. I just want to see how close it is to 35 volts, and the answer is 25, look. So the next thing we're going to do here, and you can do the same thing on a Sinclair Spectrum, any other system that's got, you know, a DC power jack like this, and no on-off switch, because that's the thing, it's really annoying having to unplug it and plug it in to reset the thing. And of course you're going to wear the socket and stuff eventually, and your connector and all that, it's going to eventually get loose. So you can see I've just got a light switch here, and we'll just put this in line with it somewhere just near the connector there, so at the side of the machine you can, you know, switch it off and on. A switch like this will cost you about £1.50, that's all this was. Yeah, so you can see the contacts there, the terminals, aren't they? So you just, you know, unscrew them, shove your wires in. You don't even need to solder. You don't even need to solder. I'm going to have it about there, actually. So we'll just literally split this in the middle here. It doesn't matter which way around you get these, technically, either, because this is AC. It's a bit different if you're switching DC. Yeah, so the idea is to just trim, you know, split them in the middle. And then pull them apart a little bit, just so that you can, hang on, yeah, pull the coating off and you know, feed them in. But I will just tin them up, actually. For main stuff, I think it's recommended that you don't tin them, actually. Although I found if you do that and you tighten up really tight, it squashes the solder point side and you get a really good join. But I think yeah, tin mains leads like that is frowned upon these days. Someone mentioned it a number of videos back. I can't remember exactly why. Why you shouldn't do it. I'm not sure how I lost a clip, so I'm filming this bit right at the end. You can see I soldered these directly on. Why? Because literally all you've got is this metal plate here, I don't know, this brass or something like that, with the screw. So you had to wrap it around the screw and then just tighten it up. It was an awful connection. If you're going to use that for a mains light switch, is what it's intended for, yeah, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. These things are so cheap, but for something like this, it's fine. So yeah, it's easier just to solder and more reliable just to solder straight on here. The cable relief things, you know, it's just like a cheap plastic on plastic, seems to be sufficient. So yeah, there we go, it's on at the moment, that's off. So I'm going to have a quick clean around the board here, and just a bit of a waffle, I guess. The 6502 here, you can see it's a bit dirty, there's some down there. Yeah, the 6502 is manufactured by Schematic. This was a time before, it came from Moss, I think. It was probably on license from Moss, the ability to create that chip. Moss eventually obviously was bought by Commodore. So this was released in 1983, August 1983. The Sinclair Spectrum came out in 92, April 92. So the Sinclair Spectrum obviously had the advantage there in terms of its, you know, over 12 months, probably 18 months earlier release. But you wouldn't expect that many games to be produced within that period. But I think it was about price. You know, these sold for £199, I think, on release, and the Sinclair Spectrum was £125 for the 16K model, and £179 or £75, something like that, for the 48K model. So, you know, this had 32K of RAM. I think it's got 32K ROM as well. Might be a bit smaller than that, I don't know. But the key here, you know, as I mentioned fairly earlier, I've probably mentioned it a few times now, 4 RAM ICs. This was an incredible efficient design, really, because you only needed half the amount of chips. You know, you've got 64K chips there, you end up with 32K. Obviously, you've only got 4 bits wide. Well, it's an 8-bit processor, so ROM access is at 2 MHz, RAM access is at 1 MHz, and it's going to be the ULA's going to be, well, the ULA is definitely the thing. It's the only thing on there really, apart from this tiny little bit of discrete logic here. So the ULA is a bit of a middleman really in terms of the access to the RAM. It's dropping the clock speed of the CPU down to 1 MHz on RAM access. in order that it can, you know, fetch the first half of a byte. It might be every other bit. I honestly don't know how that works, but yeah, 1/2 of the byte is retrieved on a read, and then it addresses suitably, you know, perhaps the upper 32k block of those, and readdresses again and gets the other 4 bits, so you've got 8 bits then to pass back to the CPU. And the opposite happens with writes, obviously. So yeah, really efficient design. You'd think that would give them the cost advantage against the Sinclair Spectrum because there's so few chips on here, but this type of chip were a bit more expensive, but that isn't really the issue. I think the price point difference is the case. You know, it's a really nice hard plastic case, but also the really nice keyboard. You know, this was so much superior to a Sinclair Spectrum, and I think it's probably those few things there that meant that it wasn't quite as successful, although there were, like, I don't know, 250,000 of these sold over its lifetime. So yeah, it did very well, but I don't know what the Spectrum figures were, but I'll bet they're like 10 times that, maybe even more. The Sinclair Spectrum was very, very popular here in the UK, and probably throughout Europe as well, I would think. In the US it wasn't. It didn't really sell there directly. You had things like the Timex, didn't you? Timex was, you know, on license, I guess, from Sinclair. At least I think it was. And I've mentioned a number of times on my channel, there's a video you should watch called Micro Men. It's on YouTube, I think. I'll post a link down below if I can. But there's also a website you should check out as well. It's the Centre for Computing History. They are like a museum here in the UK, where you can go and visit. You know, you've got lots of systems and stuff and hardware and all the accessories, and lots of interesting, intelligent people there who'll be able to tell you a bit about all the systems and things, the people that support those machines and the museum. But yeah, they did an interview with the 3 guys from Acorn, Chris Curry, Herman Hauser and Andy Hopper, and they also did a live watching of Micro Men whilst they, you know, took comments and things and gave their opinions on how realistic Micro Men was. They got some of the people looking very much like the original people, actually. It was a really, really good film. I've watched it a number of times now. Yeah, so do check out those 2 links. So the gate array here, one thought I did have is you could unclip the heatsink here, get a little bit of thermal compound on top of it and clip it back down. But you know what, through my hours of testing here, it doesn't get very hot, that at all. It doesn't get very hot at all. It was manufactured by Ferranti, same as the Spectrum ULA. Ferranti, and I'm not sure if Ferranti were an international company. They probably were. I mean, it sounds like an Italian name, doesn't it? It sounds like maybe they came from Italy originally. It might be based in the radio side of things primarily, and then they got bought out perhaps. I don't know. What I do know is I think there was a lot of Ferranti people in the UK. Some of the people that I've worked with in the past were ex-Ferranti staff, so I think there was quite a big manufacturing plant and design plant or something somewhere in the UK here. But yeah, that's Ferranti were good at creating ULAs, you know, custom gate arrays and things around this era. So you tend to find Ferranti chips on lots of things of this era. And as I say, that's got all the address decoding and stuff for the system. I think the sound comes from there, single channel, unlike the BBC that had, you know, it was a TI chip or something, wasn't it? I forget now exactly the part number, but it's a part that's used in other systems as well on the BBC. But the one in here is just a single channel. BBC had 3 channels plus noise. The other obviously difference as well, obviously, is the RAM. You've got 32k RAM here, which is a limiting factor because I think it's used for the video as well, and obviously that's going to limit your resolutions and your colour depths and stuff. I think at the lower resolutions, obviously, you get higher colour depth because you've got more bytes in RAM, if you like, to use that. Something like 10k, I think, was allocated as the video buffer. I think you can get 4 or 16 colours in the lower resolution there, but obviously as soon as you go to higher resolutions, you get either 4 colours or 2 colours. But it doesn't support mode 7, so that was obviously, you know, another difference against the BBC. But also about connectivity, you know, you've only got this connector on the back here pretty much for I/O. Now you could get a plus, you know, the card that you've seen me using in this video, that replicates some of the functionality there to obviously allow you to use, you know, the additional sideways RAM, another 64 64k, is it, I think? Or is it another 32k? I think it's another 32k, bumping this up to 64k. And obviously it provides the disk drive. But there was a +1, which, you know, I'll stick a photo up, a module that plugs on the back there that gives you a parallel port and an analog port and 2 cartridge ports. There was the +2 that never came out. That was supposed to provide an EcoNet port. And then there was the +3, which was, you know, another module that plugs on the back that gives you a disk drive interface. And the disk drive, again, I'll stick a photo up, the disk drive sort of stuck out the right hand side and sat at the side, you know, the right hand side of the machine, 3.5 inch. So that was quite nice. Something else useful to point out, you can see here, that's a blob chip. On the later revision of the Electron, Acorn did a cost reduction and you know, ended up mounting the ULA as a blob like that. So you've still got the same sort of wafer or whatever that is. You know, it's like not a wafer. It's not right. Well, you could describe it as a wafer. It's just like a piece of plastic housing with the connections here that lead to, you know, the traces going to the blob chip. But those were super cheap to manufacture versus, you know, a ceramic package or whatever that's, you know, the original one was in. But I would suspect that those are going to be less reliable. And obviously the heat may be a problem with something like that. When you've got something like this acts as a bit of a heat sink. It doesn't get that hot anyway, that. You could add some thermal paste, as I mentioned. But something like that is going to be less reliable. So thanks for the permission from Lee to share that on his blog there on Twitter, More Fun Making It Lee. There'll be a link down to his Twitter below. It's worth following him. It's also worth checking out his YouTube channel, More Fun Making It. As you can see, he's got loads of cool projects and stuff on there, and he's got less than 1,000 subscribers, which is criminal in my opinion. So yeah, if you like you know, repairs and upgrades of all these old systems, yeah, check out his channel. So other than the case on this one needing a little bit more work, you know, and obviously crack here, and maybe this is a separate video because it's going to be too much within this video already. Yeah, I forget which one's which here, but tape interface, again I'll stick a photo up, is the primary way you would have loaded software into this and, you know, saved software out. So we did the colour mod on both of these, you know, by bridging that jumper as I showed earlier. So you got, you know, colour composite coming out of here. You could repurpose the, and I don't know if this is a thing or not, but you could repurpose the RF modulator here to pass out the sound. I suspect if you know, cut the connection out on the centre pin here and just fed the positive of the, you know, of the sound output, I suspect if you connect it up to the TV that would probably work okay, you know, as audio in, so you've got composite and audio. You could do that. You may need a resistor or something because, you know, the power that's coming to this speaker here may be just a bit higher than you might like going into your TV. Right, so I also stuck those down with a bit of super glue, as you can see, so we'll just leave those for a bit. So this is much later. I've mixed some 2-part epoxy here, as you can see. I shouldn't do this on something that's not absorbent really, because obviously I'm going to lose most of it, but I just only need a little bit. The super glue works really well, I found, on these cases. So the post we stuck back on there earlier is fine, and I've had it screwed back on and it's supported really well. But I'm just going to get some of this epoxy around here as well at the point, the base where it's joined, and that's just going to strengthen it. But as I say, it's taking the full stress and torque of the screws holding the thing together and going in really tightly without an issue. So this is just a safety net more than anything. Not worried if it's a bit blobby here. I just want a little support around the base of it. So we swapped all the caps out on this one earlier. I'm just going to get some more epoxy. This was the one where this top piece here came off. It came off about a millimetre. So just around the top here, like this, I'm just going to smear it around over the edge. So it's had some time to dry. I've just pushed that fairly flat. There we go. It's not sticking out. And then we'll get the hot air, and hopefully that will make a nice join there. I literally didn't leave it very long actually for that epoxy to dry. It's probably still very malleable and gooey. There you go, you can see that's shrinking. Is it going to shrink to the size we need? That's the question. It should do, because as I go all the way around this, it'll pull, you know, it'll pull tighter and tighter and tighter. Showed this recently actually in the trying to fix things around the house video, where you need some mechanical support. Something like this is absolutely ideal. You'd be amazed what you can get away with a little bit of creativity. That should do it. This board has been cleaned up, but what I haven't done is what I did on the other one, which is to get a little bit of vinegar here. Can you see? Look how dirty and weathered that connector is. Removing oxidisation from the surface. And then of course I'll just rinse with some IPA and wipe again. That should do. So yeah, that board is looking very clean. Yeah, just look how much cleaner that connector is now. All around it, it looks way better. It's indented on the underside here, what those things are, UHF TV video RGB. Ah, so it does have RGB, that's interesting, because I'll have to consider getting an RGB cable for this. Yeah, so anyway, we'll just get the screws back in. So I've enjoyed looking at these electrons. They are super simple though, so there's only so much to actually do on them really. I will clean the edge connector there with some IPA in a minute. But they're a simple machine, so few components, so little to fail really. I would suggest the majority of failures are going to be either RAM or ULA. And there we go, one fully assembled Acorn Electron. So it's not come out too bad, has it? It has had a clean on the top. It's not this one making the noise, by the way, the other one's on test at the moment. Yeah, but it's a full clean there. And it doesn't look bad. The keyboard works perfectly. This is the one that had some of the keys, several of the keys actually, that weren't working, and just the process of getting the IPA in there and having a wobble around, a bit like we did on the Atari ST actually, that made them work, totally reliable. And funnily enough, that was the one where we had the keyboard issue originally, you know, and I thought it was the ribbon. Well, the ribbons look estate in these, as you saw, you know, you turn these things upside down and you pull the lid off these and the keyboard ribbons just look terrible. It's like a, you know, it's copper, isn't it? So I thought there was a tear, but there wasn't. It's just, they get creased and stuff, and that's all it was. It just looked a bit creased. Yeah, so this is the other one. We may revisit this, let's say, to fix the case edge, I'm not sure. It isn't that important, really. It's not that big a deal. And this is the one that came from Retro Marky. I'll stick a link to his channel down below. I did him a trade actually. I swapped the Atari ST you saw me fix. I'll stick a link up there to that. And Retro Marky kindly swapped with me for this. There's a bit of dirt there needs cleaning, so again I'll do that when I just do the edge connectors in a minute. You don't want to over tighten these for sure. It's that kind of plastic that's, well, it's gone brittle, hasn't it? Hence the damage to the front of it. There's a couple of interesting brass inserts here, can you see that go right through the case? I'm guessing that was where when you plugged the plus module on, there was a couple of like thumb screws or something that you would stick in there. Anyway, we'll just clean up these edges. I mean, you can see it's not too bad, but we'll get some deoxit gold on there. And we've got one of these, so the one that is not going to have this, I'll stick that on it. So I'll just get a little bit of deoxit gold. This is designed for clean and oxidisation off gold-plated connectors. Yeah, you can see there's a little bit there because it's a little bit grey, that. So I'll stick that on there. So I've given it a wipe on the underside as well, and all of the mucky marks have come off. You can see it was a bit dirty just on the underside there. So yeah, that's in excellent condition. So I'll get that back in, and I'm going to have a bit of a play with that one off camera. I think I'll keep this one as my main one. It's a little bit more yellow than the other one, but the case is perfect, and I just quite like to keep one that's in slightly better condition, despite the fact it's a bit more aged. You know, it's in good condition, that one. So I'll just give this one a final going over here. It's just there's a mark there or something. Whenever you wipe things like that, always just wipe a tiny little bit, less than I just did, and then inspect, just to make sure you're not pulling any core off and stuff. It's obviously laminated or something, but I would imagine if you rubbed there too hard, you could start to remove that. So try and stay away from that if you can. Yeah, there we go. That mark has come off there now. You can see the light. It was like a horrible mucky mark. The lid has had a clean on this one. Both of them have, really. But you get these, like, you know, marks that are just absolutely ingrained into them. You can see here it's like something impacted across there. You know, it's a bit damaged there. You know, because this keyboard was, you know, the keys were all stripped off and thoroughly cleaned. Yeah, there's no more marks coming off this, despite the fact that this textured plastic here does look a little bit dirty. And there's a bit coming off there, look, maybe it's still a bit dirty here. It is incredibly hard to get the dirt off these, even when you have soaked and scrubbed them. Yeah, it's coming off there a little bit. Let's have a go at some of these marks on the underside here. Ah yeah, that's coming up a lot better. All the dirt is coming off the little vents there. And there's that little wee bit of dirt there, isn't there? Cotton bud, be better. There it gets to come straight off, look, with IPA. So I posted on Patreon and Discord actually for suggestions on good games, people's favourites, so we'll just load some of those now. But it was like Retro Marky, Alex Flogjam, Goldar Fusion, Tom Darby, Jelly Squad, Stuart Scarden, Houston, Barnaburus, Bobbler, can't say that name, Bobbler, and Andy T. So yeah, thank you to those people. I'm sorry if I missed your name off the list there. So Starship Command was the first one there, let's have a quick look at that. And I'm literally going to fly through these, but on the menu there it said press F7 to AZ jump. And what you're going to do is that we see the red print on the front of these keys here. And it was a similar thing with the Spectrum. You had like the function key, didn't you, or something, or extend key, or I think you used caps lock, shift and extend on the Spectrum to get various combinations of things. But yeah, you've got the caps lock and function. If you press on its own, the caps lock LED does nothing. I think you've got to press shift, yeah, you go, to change the caps lock. But if you press this key just as is, it becomes a function key. So I can press F7 to go A to Z, and you may just be able to see that it says you know, press the letter. So S, we want Starship Command, I think it was, and then you just use the direction arrows to go a page up and down. So yeah, it's not that page. It's a little bit slow, this interface, but it's a really good interface to get to go with this. There it is, Starship Command Acorn Soft. And I think one or two people said lots of the Acorn Soft and Superior Software games were some of the best, actually. I've left this bit of footage in just so you can get an indication of how fast this cartridge is. Obviously I'll speed up the loading on the next ones, but you can see that was pretty quick, really. It's really nice being able to load some of these games this way. One thing I've noticed, whilst the keyboard works perfectly, when in games like this you've got to sort of press it just for a second or so. If you press it too quickly... Wow, I can fire. I couldn't fire last time I tried this. Wow, that is quite confusing. Yeah, so you can see on that bar on the right, it's your speed. You go forwards or backwards, steer left and right, and we can fire. So let's just try and turn around to get to that dot. It's coming right at me now. Oh, it's on my left hand side a bit. Oh, there it is, missed it. Wow, this is incredibly difficult. Yeah, took a lot of hits there, look. It's harder than you might think because, hang on, there you go. I think the forwards and backwards is confusing me. I was going forwards there when I wanted to go backwards. Wow, that is incredibly difficult. I think I would have been annoyed with this as a kid, actually, just because of how hard it is. But anyway, that is quite cool. So this one's Citadel. Yeah, sometimes you get corruptions like that. Now, is this normal? And that normal? I don't know. It probably is. Yeah, that's our character. It could indicate a fault. I don't think so. I think what we'll do is when I get things like that, I test on the other one just to make sure there isn't a problem. Ah, full look. Seems like you don't take fall damage, but yeah, I quite would have liked this, I think, as a kid. Yeah, I think what they've done with the top and bottom there, they've just used a routine to randomly fill that with garbage by the looks of things. But I will confirm that on the other one. Yeah, I think I would have quite liked this as a kid, actually. I quite like things where you've got up to explore little virtual worlds like this with things to interact with, like lifts. That's an interesting thing. How'd you get over there then? Oh, like that. Yeah, this is quite cool, actually. Hang on, that block's coming for me. Oh my god, you've got to really think about this. because obviously the patterns, the blocks follow. Look, that's going that way. Oh my god. Oh, you can't stand there. Go over there. That's very cool. I like it. So I'm going to have to jump to get right to the top, I guess. Oh, I can't reach it. Oh, that's really annoying. Yeah, there we go. So with some practice... Do we get these pots, maybe? No. Oh, I can fire. Oh, I've got bullets at the top left. It says 130. Oh, I obviously can't deal with that fire. Oh, those killed me. Yeah, this one's Positron. Ah, okay. So it's like a Invaders clone. That's quite good actually. I like the speed of it. I've been pretty pleased with that as a kid. Oh. Oh, that is quite cool. So if you do take a column them out, obviously if you keep going further to the right, and that's a technique of Space Invaders in general, to buy yourself more time. You know, if you just focus on one on each column there, it's you come down the screen an awful lot quicker. Although that's different here, look, it's changed, they're not following the same logic. Wow, that's hard. So if you get to the bottom, you're dead. There you've got to focus on actually the lowest ones, like that one over there. Oh, God. Yeah, so Killer Gorilla, you'll have seen this before when I looked at the BBC over the series of 4 or 5 videos there. It's a cool game though, this. I do like this game a lot. Obviously it's a Donkey Kong clone, but it's not bad. I can't believe the controls are here. That's convenient. Anyway, you get the idea. Yeah, this differs a little bit, I think, from the original Donkey Kong, doesn't it? Because there's like things you've got to walk over. There's a thing between the gap, you know, and the platforms, but you don't do that. You just collect these bonuses and just make your way to the top, pretty much. On this side, you just get the carts coming across. There we go. This is where things get a lot more difficult. I don't know how they got away with this, really, because it literally is Donkey Kong. Oh dear. So this one is Thrust. Yeah, this is a very cool game. You've probably seen similar iterations. It might even be the same game, actually, on the ST and other systems, so you can... Oh, I don't know how you collect it. Do you press fire, maybe? I'm not very good at this, am I? You can actually collect the fuel. I haven't worked out how. And obviously, the aim is to, I think, shoot some of these things. I am so bad at this, really. I liked games like this as a kid, though, because you know what? They're quite educational, believe it or not, in terms of understanding cause and effects, you know, gravity. It sounds like a silly thing, but yeah. There is a key you can press where you sort of suck that fuel up. I just don't know what it is. I obviously didn't read the instructions properly. Yeah, I think that's a Welcome to Exile or Exile, I'm not sure. That was really bad sound, actually. Let's see what this is like. So, F0 run game. Please type this word. Well, we don't have that word, so... Oh, correct. There we go. It's been hacked, obviously. It's interesting, isn't it, in certain screen modes where they do this, like, just garbage or... I'm not really sure what's going on there. I would suspect that there's got code or something in those areas, maybe. Or sprite data or something. I don't know. It's strange, though, isn't it? I did check on YouTube, and the where you see the garbage around the outsides there, that is correct, actually. I don't know what the keys are here. Found one of them there. That seems to like fire upwards. You can fire in different directions by the looks of things. It's not conforming to the controls that the games do, which is to use keys at the bottom of the keyboard, uses keys at the top. I mean, the graphics are amazing, aren't they? They're able to spin around. So again, I think I'd have been impressed with this as a kid, actually. I'm not entirely sure what the aim of this game is. I remember playing on the BBC, and it's quite a large map, you know, quite a large world map. There's a lot of exploring to do, and obviously avoiding things like that shoot you. Anyway, that is very cool. I haven't been able to stop playing Chucky Egg though, if I'm totally honest. We are back to Chucky Egg again. I would say this is my favourite game on the Electron, without a doubt. Up, down, left, right, jump. The cool thing with this as well is, I think it allowed up to 4 players, didn't it? So I remember playing this a lot on the Spectrum. My cousins, Marie and Neil, would periodically come around to see us and stuff, and we'd play this for a few hours. You know, I'd have like 4-player games, my brother and me and my 2 cousins. It translates so very well to the Electron. It may have even come on the BBC and the Electron before anything else, I don't know, but if you compare this to any other version, it is just as playable, if not better than some of the other versions actually. There's a little bit of flicker there. I'm not sure if I explained some of the flicker stuff actually. Because you've only got a limited RAM, or rather the bottleneck on the way the RAM is accessed, I think, you don't get double buffering. So double buffering, what you would do is you'd allocate some RAM for one copy of the screen and a percentage, or the same amount of RAM for another copy of the screen, screen buffer, so that you can literally draw your screen and then flip the buffer. The first buffer there is then displayed whilst you're able to write to the next screen buffer, like a copy of the screen if you like. You couldn't do that on here, I don't think, or you could, but it was very difficult, very challenging. So you end up with flicker, because you end up, the CPU's literally sending instructions to draw things straight to the screen that is visible. So timing obviously was important to avoid flicker, but that's why you get flicker on the lifts and things going up there, probably on the duck, and possibly on the sprites as well. Can see it on the main character. The birds don't seem to flicker, do they? Oh, that was a miscalculation. Anyway, I love this game, and it's a great game on the Electron. So there we go, there's the end result. They're as clean as they're going to get. You can certainly see a contrast between them. This one looks a lot whiter than that one, but this is the one I'm going to keep. And this is the one that was from Retro Marquee that had the RAM faults. Obviously, it's a bit bashed there, it's a bit bashed there. There's the odd mark here that's not dirt, and it's the same here. They're just like impacts and stuff. But you know what? That's come out really well, actually. I think someone's going to be happy to use that if we rehome it, and I'll be happy just keeping this one, I think. Yeah, it's a bit yellowed, but it's my yellow Electron. Anyway, I do hope you found the video interesting. Thanks to Retro Marquee again for the one with the RAM faults, and thank you for watching, subscribing, and thanks to all my Patreon supporters and everyone in Discord. I'll catch you in the next video.